Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Esports with Emmerich. I'm Emmerich. I'm your host. We're going to talk some more EU Masters as this tournament goes on. It is just another day. I mean, these contests have shrunk, and it looks like the interest in this format is not quite what the six-game first playthrough was. But we still have some interesting games, and we've still got some gambling lines that we can kind of take a look at and take advantage of. And so let's hop right into it. We are, let's see, we are talking Group C here. So there's a little bit of a different dynamic with this group, not having anybody undefeated coming into this stage, but three teams all with 2-1 records. And two spots that are just up for grabs here. In Group B, it was pretty clear cut. We had a fairly strong hold on who was going to advance, who was going to make it, and that played out. PDW did end up getting a upset of Movistar in the playthrough and have to play a tiebreaker in which they lost, but all were very, very good games. And additionally, Group D, we did see the chalky, the expected Karmine Corp get through. Vodafone Giants was a bit of a surprise, and so we might have a surprise here. When we're talking about these three teams, I have a hard time believing that Big doesn't make it out of this stage. I find it hard to believe that they lose more than one game out of these next three, if that at all. Whereas with Fnatic Rising and Illuminar, who have shown some promise and had some, good matches, they've also just kind of fell flat in other areas. They've had situations or games that I felt like that they could have won and turned, but different situations, whether it's, picking fights when your teammates aren't around, overestimating it, or just kind of bungling team fights altogether. We saw these teams just make those type of mistakes that are going to continue to get punished and allow some of their opponents back into games or to gain a further lead. At the bottom of this group, we have Zero Tenacity. They have looked kind of outmatched, but not as much so as like Anthosis or Penta. They've put up some decent fights, but I don't expect that they get out of this group. They may be able to steal a win here, but the difference here in this group is I don't think we're going to have as many meaningless games towards the end of the day. We haven't really seen teams kind of troll in those games. So I'm not even really sure that we should put too much weight into that, especially when we're talking from a DFS standpoint. But hopping right into it, just looking at the kind of the betting lines for this this set of games. The first game that we're going to get is Zero Tenacity with Big. Big is a big favorite at minus 385. Zero Tenacity at plus 265. Look, anything can kind of happen in these best of one formats, and it's nice when you have these big plus odds. But I'm just not finding myself wanting to back Zero Tenacity or having much faith in them to get the upset. When the Giants were able to upset Karmine, that was surprising enough, but it was certainly a game where you could expect that outcome far more frequently than I think you can with Zero Tenacity and Big in this situation. So I'm backing Big, but I don't like it at that number in a best of one, so I'm probably just going to avoid this game altogether. When it comes to the second game, this is probably going to have a pretty large impact on this group. If we assume that Big is going to make it through, then the other assumption is that Fnatic Rising or Illuminar, one of those two teams is going to take the other spot, especially with Zero Tenacity being 0-3 and just not overall being very good. So this game has massive implications on who gets through. One thing I can say here is that while I kind of lean towards Fnatic, I felt like that they've just been a little bit better in this tournament than Illuminar. Not much. I would say that these odds seem a little bit heavily skewed in their favor when they shouldn't be. Yes, I think they should be a favorite, but a minus 260 favorite seems just heavy-handed, and Illuminar at plus 190 is absolutely a side that I'm going to back. I think these teams are much closer to a 50-50, and these odds just don't make any sense to me. When they last played, I don't even remember which game that was. What day did that happen? Here's Fnatic. Yeah, when they last played, it was Illuminar, and actually Illuminar, as I recall, pretty handily beat them. Am I remembering this wrong? Let's take a quick gander at that and see what we got. Day 2, Fnatic, Illuminar. Yeah, I mean that was a pretty massive beatdown. So to see kind of those odds the way that they are just seems really, really strange. They have had some pretty bad odds. I mean, even just the PDW lines from today against Penta and Tricked were both completely disrespectful based on the fact that that team had been playing better than the other two, and they were still the underdog in, I think, both of them, or they just weren't, or maybe they weren't even an underdog. They were just almost like a 50-50, whereas this one is not even close. They're giving a little bit over, like, what, a 30-40% chance for Illuminar to win this, and it just doesn't, it seems pretty low. Going into the next game, Zero Tenacity, Fnatic. While Fnatic has, had some moments where I've dogged on them and I haven't been as high on them as I have been some other teams and other groups, they have been good enough in this tournament that I don't expect Zero Tenacity to, be able to beat them. The odds for this one seem a little bit more in line with what they should be. Again, it's a minus 325. As I've said before, best of one format. I'm not backing a minus 325 team. I fully expect Fnatic to take care of business here, and now Tenacity would be 0-2. But this, if you want to think that Zero Tenacity is going to get a win, I almost believe it's going to be this one or the next game. So you can kind of take a stab at one of the two of them. But, as we'll see, the odds, you just avert your eyes down, the odds don't really line up with taking them in the other one. I think right here at plus 230, if you wanted to make that bet, would be the place to go. Illuminar Gaming and Big. Again, I'm not as high on Illuminar Gaming as I was, the last time these two teams played, expecting that they could, pull off an upset. But it's, as I said, a best of one, a plus 250 odds. The team certainly is good enough, and Big have not been this world beater that look unbeatable. And quite frankly, the entire Prime League has vastly underperformed, not only in this EU Masters, but also in spring. And I think it's, one of those situations where you kind of have to downgrade all of the teams in that league just based on what we've seen with interregional play, and that includes Big. I mean, Big has, looked fine, but some of the competition that they've played, in their respective league have not. Penta has not looked good. Penta looked terrible, obviously. And then who was the other Prime League team? It's just escaping me right now. Oh, Mouse. And Mouse didn't look phenomenal either. So, at times they did, but still, this isn't a situation where a plus 250 is crazy to me to bet and expect it to, have a chance at winning. Certainly don't think that it will. But, as with anything, I'm getting a good enough odds on it that I can take it. The next one, Zero Tenacity, playing Illuminar Gaming. Look, this is what I went back to saying earlier with Zero Tenacity at a plus 230 against Fnatic, or I'm sorry, Illuminar Gaming a plus 190 against Fnatic versus only being a minus 150 against Zero Tenacity here. Zero Tenacity a plus 115. Certainly not as an attractive a spot odds-wise as the game against a Fnatic for Zero Tenacity. Definitely think they're semi-live for this, but expect Illuminar to handle it. Probably take a bet on that side of things. So, kind of wrapping it up at this point, we have kind of, one of the games that could be a decider. And that's Big, a minus 140 favorite against Fnatic. I love this line here for Big. Minus 140 seems like it's way, way too good to pass up. Expect Big to win this game. So I don't have any, crazy wild expectations about upsets. I think we know a little bit more about the teams when it gets to this stage. And the games really to look at, is going to be that early one, that Fnatic Rising, Illuminar Gaming. That's kind of the make or break for me. It has bigger implications on the rest of these games. If Zero Tenacity can, sneak out a win against Fnatic Rising or heck, even Big, that could be pretty huge as well. But yeah, nevertheless, that's kind of what's going on. I know I'm streaming this a little bit late, so I don't have as active of a chat. I'm going to take a quick look here at kind of the pricing. It is 2K up top, so I understand that the interest in these contests are significantly less. They almost had a hard time filling it the first day, and as a result, the contests have just been absolutely slaughtered. But looking at it, you can play. Let's see if we go with like Big and Fnatic. Can we? Yeah, I mean, you could do a 4-3 mid captain with Big. And then if you wanted to do it with a Luminar, yeah, just as easy. Really can play anything that you want. So in doing so, I fully expect Big to be the team that goes 3-0 or at least 2-1. And if they go 2-1, they probably score good enough that they're in the optimal. It just depends on, I guess, how Illuminar and Fnatic. I mean, if they go 2-1, who do they lose to? Do they lose to Illuminar? Do they lose to Fnatic? I guess, but then what if they, and so, yeah, this is another one of those groups. I hadn't really thought about it too much coming into this. So if Big goes 2-1, who did they lose to? Let's say they lost to Fnatic, but then let's say Fnatic loses to Illuminar. So if we're looking at all of that, who tends to be just kind of the bloodiest team out of this group here? Really looks like it's Fnatic. I mean, so if these three teams all manage to drop a game, nobody goes undefeated, I think Fnatic is a team that you want to have in your roster. I think Big is the other one. So Big, Fnatic are probably going to be the most popular combo. I definitely would have some Illuminar exposure if you're playing multiple lineups. And I mean, realistically, if you're just playing one lineup and you want to kind of get a little bit of leverage, maybe Illuminar captains is probably the way to go, and just hope that they can defeat Big and pull off a 3-0 weekend or a 3-0 day. But yeah, they leave it open. As with anything, we're definitely wanting to captain jungles. We're wanting to captain mids. We're kind of staying away from the ADC, although that has regressed a little bit so far throughout the last couple of days, where we have seen some higher scoring ADCs. But with these teams, they are a little bit more mid-focused, unless you're playing Fnatic, where I think they end up being one of the teams with Bean as their ADC that kind of plays around him a little bit more. And that is something that we saw, just looking through the numbers here. He has a significant higher kill number and KDA overall is in comparison to DeJour and Maxi. So he's one you can kind of focus there. But, when you're putting together lineups, I don't necessarily know if you want to focus on him as a captain or the ADC the captain, whether it be Kidu, Zamulik, either of those guys. So probably still stick with a mid captain. Go ahead and put DeJour in there, and then you can also have, just being in the normal ADC slot as kind of a way to go from there. But yeah, that's kind of all I got. These slates are, like I said, not as exciting as the 6-game slates. Not as much to think through. Yeah, the accumulated stats is a little bit harder to sweat too. So it's nice to have these games, though. It's nice to have the slate. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. It's EmerickD4U. We could talk about it too in the esports department Discord. If you're watching this somewhere else, feel free to pop over there, get an invite. It is free to join. All the content over there is free. We just ask that definitely if we help you win some money with any of this content or somebody else does at the site, that you go ahead and you donate. It helps everybody out. Please, if you like this, like and subscribe on YouTube. And then also you can find me, multiple times during the week. We're going to be doing different shows, premium content over at drroto.com, your daily prescription for fantasy sports. A lot of good stuff over there. Mainly, it's football season. We got NFL in a week from now. We're going to be kind of sweating that Sunday night game. Hopefully, winning hundreds of thousands of dollars. Everybody wins in NFL. So I don't doubt that we're going to be able to do that. But that's all I've got for tonight, guys. I will be back tomorrow. We'll be going over, I think it's Group A is the only one that hasn't played after this. Is that correct? Yeah. So we'll be talking Group A tomorrow. Good luck.